Hello everyone, we are right on the doorstep of the next expansion, and I have seen a shocking lack of information specialised for each class. Sure, there are tables and charts with the information on, but nothing condensed into one specific thing for that class. So today we're going to go over the things you're going to do as an Unholy Death Knight on launch week to get ready for raiding and Mythic Plus. This includes what covenants you're going to take, what conduits you're going to take, as well as a pre-raid BiS gear list. So the first thing you're going to want to do is hit 60 and complete your story campaign, so that you can pick the correct covenant when the time comes. We're going to go over the information we have available to us right now, under the assumption that it doesn't change further, but keep in mind that that very well could happen. At present, the covenant of choice is Venthyr. We are no longer the furry fox boys that we have been memed as for months now. The reasoning behind why we'll be going Venthyr instead of Night Fae is due mainly down to the runic power generation that you gain from the covenant ability. It gives you quick access to Epidemic and is just perfect for nuking large packs. You pop this ability, you spread your dots out, and by the time you've done both of those, you'll be able to do your first Epidemic. And this is one of those times where the bigger the pack, the more you're going to get out of it. So if you've got a good tank, you're going to benefit even more. Venthyr also provides early access to some relatively strong abilities on a soulbind tree like Soulseeker. This is very attractive in the early stages when we have a small amount of renown to go off of. On the screen we have an example of Nadja's soulbind tree, which we'll go through very briefly, covering all the major points. The first one she gives is Thrillseeker, which I mentioned a second ago. It's a 20% haste buff upon reaching 40 stacks of a buff that goes on throughout fights. Your abilities can give you them, and killing mobs can give you them. Longer fights give you more opportunities to pull this off. It's like an 80% heroism, basically. Moving down a little bit, we have our first conduit, and it's a DPS one. And we have two choices for this slot: Convocation of the Dead or Eternal Hunger, the conduits we have with the biggest impact to our DPS. Convocation decreases the cooldown of Apocalypse by 0.8 seconds per festering wound you burst, giving us even more uptime on our ghouls, which is quite frankly awesome because I love the army playstyle. Eternal Hunger increases the duration of Dark Transformation by 3 seconds and also its damage by 3%. The follow-up conduit we'll be taking is a Potency Conduit, and I recommend Spirit Drain. It gives you runic power when you successfully kick something, which can lead to a very small DPS increase for playing well. The penultimate conduit is a defensive one, and it's up to you which one you put here too. You can either go for a 9% damage reduction when you use Lichborn, or you can take a duration and radius increase for AMZ, 3 seconds on the duration and 15% on the radius. Now, I've seen it debated whether or not this last one will be taking a defensive conduit slot for a damaging spell or a DPS conduit spot for a utility one. On our left, we have a DPS conduit slot, which you would put the other conduit in that you didn't place earlier. And the final soulbind ability that you get is a reduction to interrupt duration, snares and root. Or we can place a secondary defensive conduit and gain access to and increase your well-fed buff, your flask and your weapon enchant, which I'm assuming that also works with Fallen Crusader, hence I imagine there's a bit of interest in that. Now, seeing as I will probably go with Convocation of the Dead, I feel that going for the extra defensive conduit for that is more valuable than 3% damage from my pet and a bit of duration, at least this early in the game. Who knows, times could change and things could get tuned still, so just again take things with a pinch of salt. Next up is your talent build. This one hasn't actually changed from raiding in the pre-patch. The only thing that might change is for AoE taking Infected Claws and Bursting Swords in a traditional Mythic Plus build kind of setup. Wasted segment? Absolutely. Am I going to do it? Also, absolutely. Okay, this is a part that you've all been interested in, and I imagine a lot of you are going to skip to this. We'll briefly touch on Legendaries here, but ultimately it's up to you which slots you place them in, and how you go about that is entirely up to you. But for raiding, we have our eyes on Deadliest Coil, which makes Death Coil cheaper by 10 runic power and increases the duration of Dark Transformation by 1 second. That could go very nicely in hand with the Eternal Hunger conduit we mentioned earlier, and it's even suggested that we could have nearly 100% uptime if you played this to its maximum potential, which that would be sick, especially when you double it up with Unholy Pact, an extra 5% strength all the time. That'd be awesome. And an AoE chain doing AoE chain damage all the AoE time. And for Mythic Plus and AoE, we'll be going Frenzied Monstrosity, which is a 12% attack speed and attack damage increase for your pet, which when it is in Dark Transformation. Said, it's up to you where you put those pieces, but there are only certain pieces that you can put it up on. The information for Legendaries will again be in the description. Okay, so on screen right now is the stat priorities as we know them to be on the beta right now. This information was gathered by Tsnack of the Death Knight Discord, where he's a moderator. I have also seen a very similar stat priority gathered by Biceps, who is also a moderator there, and also did some guides for Wowhead recently on the state of Unholy DK in the pre-patch. So I feel these are pretty accurate considering how close they are to each other. Now, just one last thing before we do actually start getting into the gear. Because I don't have access to a working version of Simcraft for the beta, we can only go on what the stat priority is right now. With some of these stats being as close as they are, I feel like some of them will change on a piece-to-piece basis. So just take this with a pinch of salt for right now. Although I can see some of these pieces being exactly what I've just said they will be. I personally expect the stat priority to stay mastery heavy, followed by haste, as it is for the AoE rotation right now. Okay, starting with the weapon, we're going to want to get Zinkahash, Blade of the Fallen God, from the other side. The helm is going to be Wing Commander's Helmet from Halls of Atonement, and the neck is also from Halls of Atonement, and is the Sin-Stained Pendant. Shoulders are going to be the Unyielding Combatant's Pauldrons from the Theatre of Pain. The cloak is going to be Drape of the Twisted Loyalties from Spire of Ascension. The chest piece is going to be Breastplate of Fatal Contrivances, also from the other side. The bracers are going to be the Thunderous Echo of Vambracers from Spires of Ascension. The gloves are going to be the Guile Windstone Talons from the Sanguine Depths. The belt's going to be the Fused Bone Great Belt from the Necrotic Wake, and the legs are going to be the Gromshell Greaves from the Mists of Tyrnus Scythe. The boots are going to be the War Boots of Relentless Conviction from Spires of Ascension. Your first ring is going to be Death God's Signet from the other side, and your second ring is going to be the Signet of the False Accuser from Halls of Atonement. Okay, so as you can see, a lot of this gear is kind of stacked in the same dungeons, which means acquiring a perfect BiS before raid, very, very tricky. But I trust you to do your best. If you cannot get a piece on Mythic, you can farm Heroics on the first 2 weeks. So I would recommend just substituting what you can't get on Mythic with one of these. I also did not do Trinkets in this list because they are still being tuned as we speak, and some of them are still not implemented at this point. There are some on there that have straight stat value, and I can't see any faults with these, but there are also some that do shadow damage. Now, I don't think that Trinkets are going to scale with our mastery, but on the off chance they do, it might be worth looking into, although I still doubt it. So, you have your pre-BiS list, or as close to it as you can possibly get. What now, you unloved hero? Well, now you can slap on some lo-fi and just start dooming till the raid comes out. And someone comes along to tell you what the raid BiS list is going to be. Now that'll include Mythic Plus and the raid. I imagine some items will be crossover, and some will come straight from the raid only. Thank you for watching. I'm going to go pass out now, and I'll see you in whatever it is I make next. Bye.